How could it be financial abuse if I had access to the bank accounts? Or I was the one paying the bills, so it couldn't have been abuse. But here's the truth. Financial abuse is not actually about whether or not you touch the money. It's about whether or not you're free to use it without fear or blame or punishment. And in an abusive relationship, that freedom doesn't exist. You can't see it in photos, right? It doesn't leave bruises. But financial abuse is one of the most powerful ways that abusive men keep women stuck. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. Almost every single abusive relationship involves financial abuse. It's not always obvious, but it's always about one thing: control. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and to honor that, I'm continuing my series, The 8 Types of Abuse. In part 1, we did physical abuse, part 2, sexual abuse, part 3, psychological abuse, in part 4, verbal abuse. Today in part 5, we are talking about financial abuse, the obvious ways that it shows up, but more specifically, the hidden ways that nobody talks about, and why money is one of the biggest reasons that women stay, even when every part of them wants to leave. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a toxic and abusive relationship expert, author, and certified coach. I help women break trauma bonds, leave abusive men, and rebuild their lives. If you've ever felt like you couldn't leave because you couldn't afford to, or you've been made to feel guilty about money that you didn't even spend, this video is going to make everything click. So subscribe now because I don't want you to miss the rest of this series. So what is financial abuse? It's not just about money. It's about control through money. It's about keeping you financially stuck, dependent, or blamed so that you can't leave. And it shows up in so many more ways than people realize. The obvious forms are easier to recognize, so we're going to start there, but stick around because I'm going to share some really insidious ways that you might not even realize you're being financially abused. Here's a pretty obvious one, right? Except maybe when you're in it, it's not so obvious, but he takes your paychecks. He controls your income. He forbids you from working. He sabotages your job so you can't keep it. He refuses to share financial information, hides assets, racks up debt in your name, controls all the accounts, and gives you an allowance like you're a child. Those are the classic examples that often people think of when they hear financial abuse. But here's the part that nobody talks about. Sometimes you're the one in charge of the money. You have the passwords. The accounts are in your name or in both of your names. You're paying the bills. And it can look like freedom, right? On the outside, everybody thinks you're the one running things. But underneath, it's a trap. And in fact, you're the one running things is the trap. Because when there isn't enough money, and there's never enough, right? It's your fault. Even if you didn't spend a dime on yourself, even if he blew the money on his own bad habits, God only knows what, it's somehow you didn't budget right. You can be carrying the whole load, paying every bill on time, and you'll still get accused of misspending. And if you do buy something small for yourself, he is going to bring it up every time you argue. This setup is actually perfect for him, right? He spends, you manage, you get blamed. This is one of the least recognized forms of financial abuse. Women often tell me, like, but I had access, right? I could have spent if I wanted, except you couldn't, right? Not without consequences, or there was no money to spend. He still controlled what was acceptable. He still turned every shortage into proof that you were the problem. And this applies to women who are stay-at-home moms and women who earn money outside the home. He controls what is acceptable. He still turns every shortage into some kind of proof that you're the problem. And then there's weaponized generosity, right? He lets you buy a new shirt or he treats you with money from the household account, but then he holds it over your head forever, or he blames normal spending as something that you should be grateful for, right? I bought you dinner. You're still complaining. I let you buy tampons last week. That's not kindness. That is control, but it's disguised as generosity. Now, another common one is withholding access, right? You technically have money, but you have to ask before you spend. You keep receipts. You're told you have to keep receipts. You have to explain every purchase. You're accountable for pennies while he blows hundreds. That is not a partnership. That's policing. And I swear, every time I talk about this, there is some man in the comment section that's like, but what if she's really bad with money? What if she has a spending problem? That's a different topic. And also something that a lot of abusive men say, that isn't actually happening. So hold your horses, bro. Now, financial abuse can also show up as sabotage, right? He undermines your career by refusing childcare so you can't work. He mocks your ambitions until you just give it up. You want to get a job? What do you know? He insists on moving somewhere where your job options are limited, but his aren't, right? He makes sure that you cannot gain independence even if you're capable. And debt is a huge weapon. He might open up credit cards in your name. Maybe he refuses to pay taxes or bills, destroys your credit. Maybe he forces you to co-sign loans for things that only benefit him. He coerces you to make purchases. Now, even if you wanted to leave, you'd be leaving with wrecked credit, piles of debt, no safety net, no way to take care of yourself, no way to take care of your kids if you have them. And this looks different depending on your role, right? Let's talk about this stay-at-home moms and working moms or women who are not moms at all. For stay-at-home moms, financial abuse often means being cut off from working, but it's framed as I'll provide for you. And on the surface, that can sound like a dream, right? You get to stay home with your kids and raise them, not to worry about bringing in money. That's his job and he works so hard. Here's the problem. That arrangement opens the door for abuse. Not all men who work outside the home and the mom is the stay-at-home mom, they're not all abusers. We're talking about the ones that are. Please, I beg of you, do not willfully misunderstand the point that I'm making. Now, one of the points that I am absolutely making is men are not natural providers nor protectors. All of this is part of a transaction. If you both agree, if it's a healthy relationship, yeah, this can work. Do you? But with abusive men, that provider promise, that is a trap. They'll say, I'll take care of you forever, and then they don't. You do everything in the home, right? You're on 24/7, raising kids, running the house, keeping life together, but you have no money. You're made to feel like you don't contribute, even though without you, nothing would function. You're the unpaid CEO, right? Because I hear this all the time. The woman does everything, and then she needs something. She has to ask. She has to ask for groceries, for clothes, for tampons, for gas. You get turned into a child in your own home, right? You can spend whatever you want, just ask. Why would you have to ask, right? It goes from, oh, it's our money to it's our money, but I keep it in an account that you can't access. You're literally standing there with your hand out for basics. And every dollar that you spend comes with strings. You can't save, you can't plan, you can't leave because he's designed it that way. And now for women who do work, right, it can look like him demanding your paycheck or guilting you for spending it on yourself. He might resent your success and punish you by spending recklessly so you never have stability. Or he'll sneer, you know what, you care more about your job than your family. No matter what you do, it's wrong. This is a double bind, obviously, which is so common in abusive relationships. But I want to be clear. While I'm here talking about women being abused by men, the reverse can happen, right? Men can be financially abused too. And it might look like she's draining the accounts, running up debt in his name, or just using money to manipulate him. And that's abuse. That is still abuse. But I want to talk about the difference. For women, financial abuse is one of the main reasons that they can't leave. It lands women in shelters, right? It's what keeps them trapped in dangerous homes. It's what leaves them without the ability to feed their kids. And that's not generally the outcome for men. And I'm not saying that it's not painful or damaging when men experience it. It is. But the impact isn't generally the same. And that's why we need to talk about this in the context of women's safety. Financial abuse doesn't always stop when the relationship ends, right? Post-separation, so many women are dragged into years of economic control. He refuses to pay what he owes, he quits jobs, he underreports his income, all to avoid his obligations. An abusive man does not value a woman's contributions, whether she worked outside the home, made less money than him, made more money than him, or didn't work outside the home but contributed to his career by doing everything at home. He doesn't value your labor. So when that relationship ends, if you want to leave, you deserve nothing. That's exactly the man that's like, you had a cush life for the last 20 years, and now you want half of what I built? Meanwhile, you helped him build it. but he doesn't see it that way. A man like this, he drags out legal battles just to drain your resources. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because post-separation abuse is actually its own episode in this series, but it is worth noting control doesn't magically disappear just because you leave. So, what does it feel like when you're living in financial abuse? Well, it feels like being treated like a child, right? Like having to ask for permission for basic needs. Feels like carrying shame for not managing right, even though you're actually carrying everyone. Feeling trapped because you can't afford to leave. And over time, it destroys your confidence in your own ability to survive. And this isn't rare. Studies show that financial abuse is present in 99% of abusive relationships. I'm going to go ahead and say that's basically all. Economic insecurity is one of the biggest reasons that women stay, return, or feel completely forced to stay in a dangerous house. It's not that they don't want to leave, they literally can't. The comment section guaranteed will be filled with women saying, I would leave if I had the money. Can you imagine being the kind of man that knew that your wife would walk out that door if she could, but she's trapped with you? And these men are fine with that because they love that you're trapped. The man behind all of this, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that money equals power. Everybody knows that money is power. If he keeps you broke, you can't leave. If he keeps you in charge of the money, he can still blame you for everything. His goal isn't financial stability, right? It's control. So if you have been made to feel guilty for spending on basics, if you've been blamed for shortages in money that you didn't cause, if you've been kept from working, if you've had your money taken, if you've been carrying the whole financial load but still been accused of failure, you have been financially abused, period. This is part 5 of the 8 types of abuse. And in part 6, that's where I'm going to go into post-separation abuse because the control doesn't end when the relationship does. And that episode is going to help so many of you connect the dots. So subscribe now so you don't miss it. And if this resonated, share it and leave a comment because the more we name financial abuse, the fewer women get trapped by it.